Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may God protect us. May God nourish us. May we work together with energy and vigor. May our study be enlightening and not give rise to misunderstandings. Om, peace, peace, peace. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. I salute Krishna, the Guru of the universe, God, the son of Vasudeva, the destroyer of Kamsa and Chanura, the supreme bliss of Devaki. We are working with the summary of chapter number 2. So far we've made till verse number 54. I'm going to say this again because with this I will continue with the summary. Arjuna uvacha stita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava stita dikhim prabhasheta kimasita vracheta kim. Arjuna said, O Krishna, how can one identify a man who is firmly established and absorbed in Brahman? In what manner does an illumined soul speak? How does he sit? How does he walk? The Lord said, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prachahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogatam atmanyevatmana tushtaha stita prajnastadochyate. When a man completely casts away, O Arjuna, all cravings that torment the heart. When a man completely casts away, O Arjuna, all cravings that torment the heart. Can anybody explain that? What are the torments?
Thinking that you're going to find satisfaction outside.
When a man completely casts away, O Arjuna, all cravings, all wants that torment the heart, he renounces all desires that have entered his mind and remains satisfied in the self, the capital self, alone, by the self. Again, the capital self. Then he is said to be a man of steady wisdom, settled with the settled conviction of one's identity with Brahman, gained by direct realization. With a settled conviction, he is convinced, he knows about his identity with the Supreme, not with his body-mind complex, not with his name and form, nama rupa, but his identity with his real self, capital self, who he really is. And it is said that this awareness and conviction arises from discrimination between what is and what is not. So with this, naturally the question is, how can we become like this? A man of a steady wisdom, a man or a woman of a steady wisdom. Right? Is it possible?
Miracles do happen.
Miracles happen, huh? Well, what is necessary or required for a miracle to happen?
Lots of yoga.
And are miracles possible?
To believe is possible.
Faith, belief, longing. So, in order to understand how to get there, last class we've been summarizing the whole chapter number 1 and 2. I cannot do that again. I will try my best to start where I left off and give you a quick summary. But basically, Sri Krishna had a problem. What was his problem? You remember? He was Arjuna. Arjuna had a problem. What was his problem? He was overwhelmed with emotion. Now, are emotions good? Are emotions bad? Could be good or bad. If we allow them to drive ourselves without discrimination, it is bad. He was overwhelmed with emotion because he asked Krishna, take me to the middle of the battlefield and let me see my opponent. Suddenly he sees his uncle Bhishma and his teacher Dronacharya, and he just simply almost faints. He starts shivering. He can't speak. He can't fight. We are going to talk about why he needs to fight today and the reasons why Sri Krishna is encouraging him to fight, to pursue his swadharma, his duty. That is the question that El has. And I'm going to try my best to answer that. If not, we'll continue working on it.
Thank you.
So although Arjuna knew very well that this battle was not between his relatives, but what was at stake was what was right, the Dharma. Therefore, it was between Dharma and Adharma. And last class, in order to understand his problem, he was overwhelmed with emotion, and that emotion confused him. And how do you get confused? When you confuse that emotion or feeling called love with attachment. Now, there is a difference between attachment and love. Can anybody tell me the difference? Love is unselfishness. It's not asking for anything. Attachment, on the contrary, is always expecting something in return. Is selfish. Attachment is always thinking, what can I get out of this? But love is unconditional. Love is freedom. And he was overwhelmed by attachment, and attachment is raga in Sanskrit. And raga leads to attachment leads to sorrow, and sorrow leads to delusion. So, and remember I gave you an illustration about the fire and its power of burning. You remember? we talked about that intrinsic property and the incidental property. Do you still remember? Yes.
Are you just restarting from the beginning?
Not really. I just need you to understand this so that we can go on.
Homework, so that we go home and study at home.
So there is a kettle, there is water, there is fire, and what we want is hot water. Now, how do we get hot water? We just pour the water on the fire? No. We put the water inside the kettle and the kettle on the fire. Now, as the process goes, the process starts. The kettle gets hotter and hotter, and it starts gaining heat. The same goes with the water, and it gets hotter and hotter. Now, why is the water hot? Because of the fire? Because of the kettle? The kettle is hot because of the kettle. And why is the kettle hot? Why is the fire hot? Because of its intrinsic quality. Now, as long as the water is associated with the kettle and the kettle with the fire, the water will remain hot, but permanently? No, as long as it remains under the influence of the heat of the fire, right? So the heat depends on the fire, just as it is the water, and the heat being borrowed by the fire. The heat we are looking for outside will never be permanent. The heat that we are looking for outside ourselves will never be permanent. It will be borrowed. It will be borrowed. And this is very important for you to understand. Because we get heat, but it's borrowed. Borrowed from who? Fire. Where is the fire coming from? From outside? We illumine. It's us. The heat we are looking for outside will never be permanent. It will always be an incidental property, borrowed from something else. What is that something else? Our blissful inner nature. We are of the nature of eternal, absolute bliss. As spiritual beings, as Atman, we are existence absolute, knowledge, awareness absolute, and bliss absolute. And that's all we want. We are looking for that outside ourselves, through our senses, our sense experience. But that's already there. It's us. We just happen to need the right contact based on our hankerings and wants. And that spark of bliss will come from within. What happens when you want something? You want really bad. You want a piece of cake. You can't stop thinking about it. Now when you get it, boom. That spark of bliss comes from within you. But will that be permanent? As long as the cake tastes good, that satisfaction will never be permanent. And what do we want? Unpolluted, eternal satisfaction. We want to be fulfilled. We want to feel complete. And we think that we will find in somebody else, in our soulmate maybe, or in something. But in reality, we can only find that within us, making contact to that who we are. So, any type of ananda, any type of bliss we get from the external world is a borrowed happiness. You will be okay as long as these conditions last. Whereas in a situation where you simply find yourself content with yourself, regardless the conditions or external circumstances, then our inner state will remain independent. Now, why am I reminding you this? Because I started describing the characteristics of a man of steady wisdom. He remains satisfied with himself in the capital self. He's got it all. All these cravings from the outside, they may come to him, but he's already satisfied. He's happy with himself. If they come to him, they can take them. But it's not a requirement. He doesn't need it. Because he has mastered himself. Now, that's why we are here, because we need to master ourselves. And although it might not be easy, but there is no other way. If we want to stop suffering, if we want to stop with these miseries of this world, there is no other way but to start making connections with our innermost being. How do we do that? Bhagavad Gita says it all. So, we need to understand this, who we are. This fundamental question, it is answered by these rishis or seers of the truth. We are the capital self. We are spiritual beings experiencing a human or having a human experience. Now, this human experience is composed by this nama and rupa, name and form. You are existence, knowledge, bliss, Nikhil. Existence, knowledge, bliss, Devan. Existence, knowledge, bliss, Swami. But we are all existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. We have to go beyond name and form. Can we do that? Yes. It is just our call. It is our decision. And our struggle in life should be that, to start identifying ourselves with who we really are. That's what Vedanta expects from us. This is our human goal, the goal of human birth, to find that freedom from all external dependencies. The central teaching of the Gita is the attainment of that freedom. You're still here, but you're free. So, this can happen. You just need to make that decision. Mm-hmm. In order to get there, the Gita also points out that as long as we remain dissatisfied with ourselves, we will continue with this coming and going of birth and rebirth, so that eventually we will learn to accept certain facts of nature. What is nature? Name and form. This duality. So that eventually we will learn to accept certain facts of nature, certain facts of life. This is life. And to do something about it. The goal of life is liberation, freedom. That's why we love to express that. We love freedom. Freedom is moksha in Sanskrit, and in other words means complete satisfaction with myself, in myself, through myself. As I am, capital. As I am as Atman, as the self. Atman is the capital self in Sanskrit, as well as I am with the facts of nature. Now this is very important because the external world will not change. The change happens within us. So it's not that the world suddenly, all these wars and all this killing and hypocrisy will stop. Unfortunately, that will continue. The only thing that we have control upon is just ourselves. So the goal is to change our character, to change ourselves. How do we do that? We'll keep working. We need to accept this. Total acceptance about who I am and the facts of nature. That integration, that fulfillment, that understanding of who we really are will only bring about fulfillment or freedom. Now, coming back to Arjuna's problem, in chapter number 2, last class I told you that from verse number 1 to 10, just to summarize, these verses describe the surrendering of Arjuna. He acknowledges and he realizes that he is hopeless. He can't help his situation. He is completely deluded, confused. He cannot fight. From verses number 11 to 38, Shri Krishna conveys to Arjuna the knowledge of the self. From verses 39 to 53, so far we finished with verse number 53. He explains how you do that. How do you get to become a man of steady wisdom? When I said man, I say man, I mean all of us. Men, I mean no gender. So please don't be human beings, just in case. Men and women of steady wisdom. So karma yoga is the means. We will again work on this today. And from verses 54 to 72, Krishna talks about this wise man, this liberated soul. As I said in the beginning, how does he behave? How does he sit? How does he talk? How does he walk? So that's from verse number 54 to 72. There is a description of how this person who has is a mukta purusha, liberated soul, how does he behave? Before getting there, we will start again summarizing really quick. So basically, Arjuna finds himself in the middle of the battlefield, and he needs to fight, and he can't because he is overwhelmed, overpowered by his sorrow, or with his sorrow. So Sri Krishna, his job is to change his mind. How does he do that? He takes three approaches. The number one is the philosophical approach, where he conveys to Arjuna the knowledge of the self, the capital self. Who are you? You are not Arjuna, although you are acting like Arjuna, but you are the self, you are the Atman. The second approach is the ethical approach, and here is where we left off last class. We started talking about Dharma. And the third approach is the worldly approach. If you don't fight, the social approach. What would people think about you? So the philosophical approach, basically, the first lesson is that this body is mortal, subject to old age, disease, and death. In short, this body, this physical body, is subject to change, and this is inevitable. Once we are born here, we should be ready to accept these three facts of nature: old age, disease, and death. Now, if we don't accept this, we are in trouble. Always with a smile. There is nothing we can do about it. However, we can accept this. Acceptance of the facts of nature, a fact of nature. So this mental preparation and this acceptance of this physical mortality is the first lesson. The second lesson is that behind this mortal body is the real I. And Arjuna needs to assimilate this wisdom. What is the self? What is the Atman? And we said that Atman is Nityaha. Atman is eternal. I am eternal. I am eternal. Atman is Satyaha. I am independent, the reality upon which everything depends, just like fire and its heat. I am absolutely independent. Atman is Sarvagataha, all-pervading. It's everywhere, the one without a second, beyond name and form. See how beautiful it is? We are all having the experience of Atman through our name and form. But if we know the truth, then there is nothing to worry about. Well, all the values born from this unity in diversity, we will have to practice if we are aware of it. I will explain later. Atman is Akarta, not the doer. Atman is Abhokta, not the enjoyer. Atman is Chaitanyam, consciousness, and immortal, Nityam. If ever immortal is therefore indestructible. This is the indweller of the body. This is who you are. So Sri Krishna says in verse number 27, Chatasya hi dhruvam mrityuhu, dhruvam janma mritasya cha, tasmada pariharyarte, na tvam shochitum arhasi. Death is certain for the born. Rebirth is certain for the dead. You should not grieve, for what is unavoidable. Remember last class I mentioned the fact that some people may abuse this verse, this sloka, by saying, well, if nobody dies, then let me just go and kill people. And that is not good. Never do that. Why? Well, because although Vedanta says this, it's based on Dharma. So Vedanta is never, ever against something called Dharma. I'm going to explain what Dharma is today. Dharma is the moral law. Vedanta can really only coexist with Dharma, because whatever I do to my fellow being, I am doing it to myself. Whatever I think, whatever I say, whatever I do to the external world, I am doing it to myself. So, love everyone. The second level of argument that Sri Krishna, with which Sri Krishna is going to change Arjuna's mind, is from the point of view of ethics, the ethical or moral angle. That's why we mentioned the word Dharma. And Dharma, what is Dharma? Anyone? Easy.
Righteous duty.
Duty. What else? There.
The literal meaning is the one which holds together.
Uh-huh. Nice.
The right thing to do.
All right. Well, Dharma is that which sustains, supports the existence of a thing. From the Dri Dhatu. That is Dharma. And what do you think that will support the peace and harmony of this world? That is called Dharma. Moral values, ethical values. So the word Dharma has many meanings, just as you guys mentioned, out of which 4 are considered to be important: duty, rituals, attitudes, and values. And also the word Dharma is denoted as one of the 4 human goals: Artha, Kama, Dharma. Dharma means punyam. Punyam means that value that I am going to exercise in my life so that I can get nothing but goodness. Religious practices. Be good and do good. You will get good. You might be able to see it in your life, or maybe not. You might be able to enjoy the goodness coming from your past births. That is called your bank account somewhere. That is called punyam, the goodness. The green bag. So what the peculiarity about this is that we all understand that we need to be good, and we also know that by being good and doing good, we will get something in return. Number 1, peace of mind. And number 2, we tune some kind of radio station where we don't need to worry anymore, because that gives us strength. And that's what we want. Swami Dhyanayogananda says the message of the Upanishads for me is nothing but strength. Strength, strength, strength is all we want. Why do we need a strength? We need to be strong. We need to be heroes. Because we need to put this into practice. It's easy to hear, but to apply this in your life, you have to be strong, because you have to put others before you. You have to practice unselfishness. You have to be less selfish. You have to think twice before you start judging others, before you start finding mistakes or shortcomings in others. You have to think twice. Find your shortcomings first. Then you will enjoy peace. And of course, change yourself. So the whole thing about the goal is to change ourselves, is to change our personalities, is to change our characters. That's why we need to accept, we need strength. And the practice of Dharma is essential. But again, there are two types of Dharma. Dharma can be classified into two types. Number one is the universal Dharma. We are all there. We are all responsible for this universal Dharma. In Sanskrit, it's called Samanya Dharma. That Dharma which is common to all human beings, irrespective of caste, creed, nationality, race, you name it, as human beings. And another type of Dharma according to specific duties, or depending on your caste or social status or group, that is called Vishesha Dharma, which is subtle and differs from person to person. The duty of a mother may not be my duty, or maybe, I don't know, because monks are supposed to be have that mother. But you know what I mean. Based on the Vedas, Itihasas are a combination of history and mythology. Based on the Vedas, these ancient Hindu scriptures, the Itihasas, the Puranas, all these stories, beautiful stories. Those who are Hindu here, they understand, amazing. The Dharma Shastras are written. What are Dharma Shastras? The rules are compiled in what we call the Smritis. Smriti means remembered wisdom, written by acharyas or teachers who have deeply studied the Vedas. And all these Puranas and Itihasas, they are scholars or pandits. So they have organized the social rules which are scattered all over the Vedas, Itihasas and Puranas. So they are also the source of Dharma, of this universal Dharma. So Samanya Dharma does not depend upon a person's varna or caste, whether you are a Brahmana, a Kshatriya, or a Vaishya, or a Shudra. Whether one is male or female, whether one is a brahmachari or a sannyasi or a monk. Samanya Dharma is based on general rules. The Dharma Shastra is the code of conduct, and basically they are called yamas and niyamas. So quickly, the yamas, first one, ahimsa. Ahimsa is? So, are you all okay practicing ahimsa? Whether you are veg, non-veg. It's all Brahman. It all carries life. It all carries that life, that consciousness. But we should try our best to practice ahimsa. Non-violence is a duty. It's a value followed by all. We don't go there and start killing. But you also have to bear in mind that the universe is based on sacrifice. So others are sacrificing for us. And we eventually will have to sacrifice ourselves for others. Very good. there are exceptional cases. This is important. So, although that Dharma Shastra says that ahimsa is a samanya dharma, a general value, there are exceptions. Remember, Arjuna is in the middle of the battlefield and he needs to fight. He needs to kill. There are exceptional cases where violence is allowed. Not only it is allowed, it is a duty. It is a must according to the caste if you are a warrior. So, ahimsa. The second one is satyam. Satya means speaking the truth. Asteyam. Asteyam means not taking somebody else's property, not stealing. Aparigraha. Simplicity. Just lead a simple life. By simplicity, it means that the wealth should be equally distributed. It's kind of hard to believe that, but again, we should try. Shaucham, cleanliness, hygiene. Santoshaha. Santoshaha means contentment. Learning to be content, happy, or content, I would say. Content is more steady. Freedom from jealousy. We shouldn't compare. Swami Vivekananda says, what does Swami Vivekananda says? We should not compare, because to compare each other is mean. It's mean because each and every one of us is great in its own place. Comparison leads to competition. Competition leads to jealousy or envy, which eventually leads to all kinds of evils. Swadhyaya, scriptural study, again, is a universal dharma, a universal rule, and particularly for some castes, the Brahmana, the Kshatriya, and the Vaishya in India. Ishvara Pranidhanam means surrendering to God. So here, there is a fact of God that we need to embrace. I will talk about it a little later. Is another universal dharma. And the other dharma, remember there were two types of dharma, a universal dharma and the other one that leads with specific duties is called Vishesha Dharma, which means specific duties which will vary from group to group or people. Vishesha Dharma can be defined as the duties of an individual, as a child, a student, a spouse, a parent, an employee, an employer, a citizen, and so on. So you have a Vishesha Dharma, you have a Vishesha Dharma. We all have a Dharma according to our status, our role. In India, we have the caste system, and those who know a little bit, they will understand what I mean. Whether you are a man or a woman, such is the duty of an individual, depending upon the designation in life or your role in life. So we have a universal dharma and a specific dharma. Now, this type of dharma is what we call swadharma. Swadharma, sometimes it's called duty. Swadharma. We all have a swadharma. So there is another type of dharma, according to the Dharma Shastra, based on the caste system. It's called Varnashrama Dharma. Varnashrama Dharma. it says that the Brahmin has no right to fight a war, because the duty of a Brahmin is to study and to preserve the knowledge of the scriptures, to be priests. So if a Brahmana finds injustice or something that is not correct, he is supposed to report that to the Kshatriya or the law. The Kshatriya are the warriors, the police. Just call 911. Okay? So Arjuna happens to be a Kshatriya, a warrior. Therefore, his Swadharma is what? As his duty. Okay, so he needs to fight. Just like a warrior cannot say, I want to follow ahimsa. I will not kill anyone. Would that be okay? If someone, North Korea, suddenly starts attacking, what are we going to do? Please don't, I'm just kidding. No. I don't want to take it to that, but that level. But so I hope you all understand that there is a line of what is right and what is wrong, right? And we all know that. Intuitively, we all know that. And depending on the role you are playing, in this particular case, Arjuna's duty was to fight a fair war. So Arjuna says, Lord Krishna, you better be aware of your social duty as a warrior. You need to fight. We have the general rule, and there are exceptions. Remember I told you before, there are exceptions to ahimsa. Killing is allowed for the sake of maintaining the law and order. Only a kshatriya, only a warrior in India, considering the caste system, is entitled to use violence to correct or vanquish an adharmic person if the non-violent methods failed. And in the case of the Pandavas and the Kauravas, the Pandavas exhausted all the possible methods and the non-violent methods. So there was no other way. War was a must. Somehow there was a need to put limits to these people, the Kauravas, who were just simply taking over the whole country and depriving them of their rights. So the third level of Sri Krishna is trying to convince Arjuna to fight is the worldly level, the worldly approach. And basically, otherwise Arjuna says, Krishna, you will lose your name. What would people say if you don't fight? Shame, shame, shame. So Krishna's argument is that this war is ethical and therefore Arjuna should fight. He says, if you do not fight this war, not only you will not go to heaven, promising this dualistic kind of belief that if you do good, this dualistic approach, you eventually go to heaven. Not only you will go to heaven, but you will also experience the hell here in this human birth. So you are going to get hell because if a person renounces his duty, the omission of the duty itself is considered wrong. So the wrong could be commission and omission. Give me an example. Commission.
So you do
When you do
something wrong thing.
the wrong thing. For example, when you go against the universal Dharma, the universal Dharma. Or
Can you say more about the story of heaven? Can you explain more about that?
oh, not today. Swarga means heaven. Heaven is here and now, my dear. We all need to believe in some kind of heaven, but the real heaven happens here in this very earth. And it is when you somehow you control yourself, you master yourself, you start living in heaven. There is more, but I don't want to divert them. So there is two type of wrong. In Sanskrit it's called papam. One is omission, and another is commission. And the omission would be not paying your taxes, maybe. You didn't do anything wrong, but so in the case of Arjuna, what kind of papam do you think he's indulging? What kind of wrong? Commission or? Because what he has to do. Okay, is it clear? Thank you. Because it's really, if we start talking about this, there is no end. So then Krishna approached Arjuna from the philosophical point of view, from the ethical point of view, from the worldly point of view, and changed his mind. Finally, he said, you have to fight this fair war. Hopefully, Shri Krishna changed our minds too, because we need to fight with our main enemy, worst enemy. Who is our worst enemy?
The small self?
Yes, the ego. What is the ego? Identification with name and form. Our ego has got two sides. Ahamkara, I. You see, I am so and so, therefore I am greater than you. I am powerful. The other day, somebody was like, really? I am more powerful than you. I was like, okay, well. If you believe, good for you. I am so and so. And Mamakara. Mamakara means mine. My sister used to say, this is mine, this is mine. I was the youngest, of course. So, Mamakara. And that's our worst enemy. And we will stop here, because we only have 4 minutes. Unfortunately, because there is a lot more. But don't expect that next class I'm going to start again. Please. Next class, if I say fire, you should say what?
Hot.
Say heat. And if I say incidental, you should say intrinsic.
Let's start over.
And that's important, because all we are looking for, unfortunately, is not outside, my dear friends. It's not. What we get is just bits, whatever we can illumine for milliseconds. That's all the bliss we get. And we need to learn to go within, to make contact with ourselves, because there is the source of ananda, the source of absolute bliss. There we will find contentment. And if we learn to live there, we are just happy, regardless of the world. regardless good and bad. And just to leave you with something, what is that practice, that attitude that Sri Krishna teaches Arjuna? How do you achieve this? One word. Detachment, yes, sure. Very good. But in order to achieve that, or to start practicing detachment, you should have the right attitude. And the right attitude is called samatvam. Samatvam is calmness. Don't react. Equanimity. And equanimity is, here Sri Krishna is going to teach how to do this in your life. This type of yoga is the yoga of equanimity. And the yoga of equanimity is called karma yoga. So, how to practice this yoga of unselfish action? Once we master that, which is, in a way, is a philosophy of life, it's a way of life, karma yoga, this yoga of equanimity, followed, you get there with your attitude towards life, towards God. You will master that, and you will be able to be beyond this. What happens to us, we go to one side, we go to the other. We will find that equilibrium. Questions? Wow.
Can you repeat the Sanskrit name for
Samatvam. Calmness.
Which text is the lesson from today?
This is Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 2. And so far we made it to verse number 38. We finished. This is a summary. I'm going really fast now. But next class, hopefully, we will finish with the summary and we will start with verse number 56. There are many versions of the Gita. The simplest and easy to read version is the one published by Swami Prabhavananda and Christopher Isherwood. It's an easy reading. Then you can also read Swami Chidbhavananda's Gita. I'm mostly following a non-dualistic, the non-dualistic school of Sri Shankaracharya. So I'm also following the commentary of Sri Shankaracharya, which is the teacher of non-dualism. And most importantly, I'm giving this in the light of Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna, who are our teachers. So you're all welcome to questions and doubts.
What was the first book you just mentioned?
Bhagavad Gita by Swami Prabhavananda. You will find it in the bookshop. I'm not trying to sell books, but they are all there. And so as you can see, chapter number 2 is very, very, very important. The whole Gita is supported. This is the foundation. Chapter number 2. And also, the same thing is going to be repeated in chapter number 18, the last chapter. So, thank you for coming. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you.
Thank you.